Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. Should be recording.
It might have been recording this whole time because when I signed on, yeah, it is recording. I see the icon, so I think we're already recording.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, Jeremy, you're still on mute. I don't know if you're talking, but there we go.
Oh, I'm full on talking. I already got the Pledge of Allegiance out of the way. All right, let's start over again. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To
of the
the
United
flag.
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. No, we're fine. Okay, Aaron, if you could call roll, please.
Jeremy Boucher,
Present.
Aaron Montano present, Bryn King,
Present.
Gabriel Sook,
Isn't
Yeah, it's gonna be long.
is Rebecca here? Rebecca Boucher,
Absent.
absent. Mark Masick
Absent.
and Terry Frazier.
Also absent.
Okay.
Okay, so let's take a look at the agenda. It's in everybody's packet here. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda as it stands? All right, hearing no additions or corrections, we can deem them approved, move on to the consent agenda items. So if everyone can take a look at those. Is there anything that needs to be pulled from the list of consent agenda items and put on the agenda proper?
Jeremy, did you already do the approval of the minutes? I mean, of the last meeting? I didn't hear you if you did.
No, we have, that's in the consent agenda items as
Oh,
well.
okay, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, so consent agenda items, any additions or corrections to the minutes from the last meeting? Or
The
any,
only thing I'll say about the bars is we did have 2 new late breaking bars. They are in the packet, but they would go under additional bars. So as long as in the minutes we list all 4 of them, then we're fine.
okay. So you're saying those additional bars will go?
I'll just in the minutes underneath the other
Yeah,
2.
okay. Yeah.
They're all increase bars or addition. I think that's right. Yeah.
We're accepting more money, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, we are accepting more money.
Okay. Okay, there being no suggestions for changes to the consent agenda items, I'll call for, I would take a motion to approve them as they stand. Do I have a motion?
motion to approve.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. I'll call for the vote. Bryn, how do you vote?
Aye.
Gabe?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
All right, great. Thank you. Let's move on to the next. But let me get back to my agenda here, which would be the nepotism waiver. All right, so Katie and Julianne, if you could walk us through what is requested here.
I'll do a quick overview and then I'll let Julian take it over, but we
Okay.
just every year.
Yeah.
This is, I think, the 3rd year we're doing it. I don't know. Anyway, but it's for folks, it's for specifically Keith, and some other folks that are related to other staff members on staff to continue to work at Hozho. But I think I messed that up, so I'm gonna let Julian take over the detail.
Okay.
So this year for the nepotism waiver, asking the board to waive, Keith Hillick, and Brooke Schaefer as full-time employees, and as occasional employee, on like a contract basis, maybe one class here or there for, credit recovery or something else. If I can't find anyone else, I asked Julia Wolf, my daughter who used to work at the school, to, fill in. But she's not a full-time, she's just as needed, whenever we can't find somebody to fill in or something.
All right, does anybody have any questions or concerns about that, about the waiver?
Nope.
All right, there be no questions or concerns, I would entertain a motion to approve the nepotism waiver for those three individuals. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the nepotism waiver for those three named individuals.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote on the waiving the nepotism waiver for those, or yeah, to approve the nepotism waiver for those three named individuals. Aaron, how do you vote?
Aye.
Gabe?
Aye.
Bryn?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Approved. Let's move on to the next item, term limit removal for governing council members. So this is one to really let's discuss in depth here. So from tonight could possibly be Bryn. So my last meeting, Bryn's last meeting, and Aaron's last meeting. And I know it's kind of crept up on us quickly. And we do, it's not easy to find new board members. And so I think this is an attempt to keep us actually in compliance, because if the three of us drop off today and we don't have replacement members, we'll drop below 5. So this is one option for us to stay in compliance. But it will take, this is something that's going to take some serious thought and discussion. So
And Jeremy, can I add one thing? So
yeah,
I
go ahead, Dan, please do.
think your next action item is to vote on a new member.
Oh,
And so
okay.
just to give context, so Jeremy framed it correctly. You have 3 members who are rolling off per your bylaws. And so if they roll off and there's no replacement, then you would fall below 5 members, which is the statutory minimum. Now, if you vote in the new member tonight, regardless of whether you do anything with the term limits, you'll still be above 5 or
Okay.
5 at the next meeting, right? And so just so you have full information, I think that's, if you do vote on that new member, you would be compliant still, even if the other members roll off. And
Right.
then the other piece I'll add is if we do, a bylaw change, we have to notify the PEC of that, which isn't, Sam's on, she can talk about that as well, but it's not a huge ordeal, but it is something, and they scrutinize everything you do, I think. So that's just for context as well.
Dan, do you think would it be frowned upon, or would they look at that in any kind of negative light? Would there be? I mean, I realize
Yeah.
do
Hard
you
to
have any
say.
sense on that? Okay.
I think here's what my most diplomatic answer is: in practice, most boards don't have term limits, or it's probably at least 50-50, and the commission doesn't really think about it. But if it's put before them, they will think about it. And I could see some of them saying, oh, well, shouldn't there be turnover because you got the same people on the board and you're never going to improve or whatever, right? There's that sort of like term limit argument that people make. And so in my mind, I don't think it should be a big deal if you were to remove them, but you never really know how the commission's going to react. And I could see there being
Yeah.
some question about like, oh, well, isn't it good to have new people involved? And shouldn't we not just have the same people? Hard to say how they would react, but I could see that potentially coming up. And you've gotten scrutiny from the commission before, so it's
Yeah.
worth considering.
Well, I was just finishing all my training finally, and there's like so much talk about, bringing in new members and the importance of, you know, rotating the board and yada yada yada. So, but there's no other, and I see we do have that new board member vote. There's no other mechanism by which we could get by ourselves. There's no other mechanism we could just buy ourselves a little bit of time. That would kind of be the only way.
I think the middle ground there, Gabe, that's a great question. The middle ground would be granting one more term, which is what we did last time around. We just changed the bylaws to say, hey, look, okay, I think we're into our third term, I think is how third 2-year term or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the numbers are, honestly. But that's another way we could go about it, is to grant one more term. It gives us a little more time to say, okay, now going forward, we know this is our last term, and we're going to have to really find new board members. I do think that's a good thing. My concern with the term limit removal is, we're new and we're fresh. Even those of us who've been on the board, it's like, everything's been changing so quickly, and we're part of an exciting, endeavor that we're building. My concern would be down the road, once the school is sort of established, and
Mm,
all of us are retired from the board or whatever, and we get some people on there that, maybe are not as, I don't know.
yeah.
You could get in a situation where it becomes difficult, and you may have to, you have to try to remove board members if they're being too difficult or whatever. The term limit kind of just gives you, it gives you the option to just wait someone out if you can't quite get the support to get rid of them, if they're not, if they're not really, if they're difficult board members, if you know what I mean. Like,
I think
so
that's really smart. And I wasn't thinking that way, but I do think that's important. I think the other component that I would want to speak to is like, I think for the people who have been on the board for a long time, you, Bryn, Aaron, like you've given a ton of service, and like, and I think this applies to you now, but could apply to other people in the future. Like even our like most helpful board, like I think we want to give them an off ramp too, where it's like, that, you kind of serve for this period of time, and you make your impact in that time, and then it's done. And I don't know, we don't have to get into it, but it's like, I think it's entirely reasonable that you guys might be feeling, I've been at this for a long time, I want to kind of devote time to something else, you know and to kind of maintain that off ramp for you guys. Unless, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but just kind of, you know
no,
I don't
there.
know what you guys were thinking.
Yeah, no, there definitely is that sense. I've always got a million things on my plate. I've been devoted to this thing, and been really, I mean, it's been a huge part of my life for the last, we're going 6 years now. But I don't see myself, needing to be here for the next 6. You know what I mean? I think it would be
Yeah.
good for us to turn it over, to the next phase. So, I mean, my personally, I think the best thing that we could do, tonight is, bring on a new board member if that's a possibility, so that we remain above. And then, here's the thing, like we could say, some of us, we come off, the 3 of us come off, and then we sit out a term. And then if we're really feeling like, hey, some stuff is freed up or whatever, or we want to get back and be a part of the school again in that way, there's no reason that we can't. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Dan, right? It's consecutive terms,
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that would prevent you from coming back.
right?
And I think so, just kind of hearing the discussion, my recommendation would be just table the vote on limit removal. And then you can have the vote on the new member. Assuming you vote in the new member, then you're going to be compliant. If for some reason you don't, you can always remove the tabled item, or bring the tabled item back and vote on that, so that you're not going to fall under the statutory minimum. And then, to Jeremy's point, I think you could, the board members who left could come back at some point. there's actually an interesting question of whether they'd even have to sit out a whole year or if they could just come back and like sit out a month or something. And that's kind of an interesting
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
But or if if we feel like we need to deal with that through an amendment, we could do that at that time too. So I think there's lots of options there.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I mean, Jeremy, what I was thinking too is just like, I mean, we're up again, we have 6 days basically.
Yeah.
And so, and then Dan, just practically speaking though, say we vote in the new board member, we're at 5, but our quorum would go down to 3. Is that right? Or is I'm just thinking in terms of like conducting business
Yep.
going
So
forward. Is that
if you have 5 members, your quorum's 3.
okay?
So a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Question, so where does that leave us, the 3 of us, at the end of this month? Like, when is our official term? You know what I mean? If we table this and we don't vote on it, then do we just expire without voting on it? And that is the vote.
Right. Yeah. So on the 31st, our terms would legally end, and the board would be whoever is on it currently and the new member. And so the 3 of us we would term out, and it would be up to whoever we vote on tonight, Gabe, Mark, Terry, and then my mom will still be on as well. So that'd be 5.
Yeah. I mean, that
So are we
sounds
wanting
so-
to talk, like, are you guys wondering, are you wanting us to be done for sure? Or are you like, if you guys are willing to stay on, we'd love you to stay on? I'm just kind of wondering because that is what will happen. So then if
yeah, I think
if we're wanting to discuss it, this would be our time to discuss it rather than tabling it.
Yeah.
I think what Dan was saying too is, I mean, I think we can hear what people want to say. I think in an ideal world, if we can avoid having to go back to PEC and getting like, because I think what Dan said really makes sense too. It's like it won't, it's kind of routine, but still they have to go back and approve it. And so that, I guess like if one of you guys, really, felt like you had more to give or whatever, it sounds like the easier way to do that would almost be to let the terms expire and then re-add to the board, at our next meeting or something like that, rather than having to do the thing that requires us to adjust our bylaws.
Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment, Gabe.
Dan, that sounds right to you?
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay. Oh, okay, but along those lines, we have to then, because we have our president, our secretary, and our treasurer.
Yeah. So the way it would work is once if we if we leave it as it is tonight, let's just table it, bring on a new board member. What you guys would have to do is just go through and do what we've done, our first meeting of the year, make that the officer election meeting. And so then you would just you would re-elect all of those positions at that time.
We can leave that for July. Like, it doesn't
Yeah,
need to be set.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that doesn't need to be set until maybe July or August, like one of those early meetings in the year, so that, well, it should be July probably. So you'll have to have somebody who just is going to be the acting president at that point, but that's pretty easy to do.
Okay.
Yeah, and and just so you guys know, I'm gonna need someone starting July 1. We got to put you on the bank. And you're gonna have to approve payments, even if you're just like acting. So I don't know if there's a way, Dan, that we table the term limit removal, but in the new board vote, we declare someone acting president, because between July 1st and the next meeting at the end of July, we're gonna have to pay bills.
Are we
Dan,
able
do you
to
have
do
any?
that with it not being on the agenda? Are we able to just?
I-
Uh,
I don't
We
know.
can.
It's gonna be on.
Sorry, I had to switch my phone. Was the question essentially, because people are going to roll off, you're going to have a period without a treasurer?
And president, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to vote them in at your next meeting. There's nothing on the agenda for this meeting, so you couldn't vote on officers. Um, I, in terms of bank signatories, is Jeremy the only signatory right now?
Him and Bryn and Julianne.
Okay, and you need 2 signers for everything?
We need 2
Yeah.
signers, but if we can designate someone as the acting president, then we can get them.
I think it would be, who's the vice president right now?
Bryn.
Uh,
No, it's Rebecca. I think.
Oh, it's is it Rebecca?
I believe so.
We'd have to go.
yeah,
Yes.
so I mean, I would say she could probably fill in. We could probably use that to get her approved as the acting president, and then once they vote, whoever gets voted in, we can just make the change then.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I'm just thinking logistically, that's gonna be a bit of a hairy situation because like to add her to the bank and then to add her to the software. I don't know. It takes longer than like doing it. It takes a few days.
What if you guys had your first meeting, we drop off and you guys have your first meeting of the year early in July?
Yeah.
Or we could even do something quick
Housekeeping.
July 1st
Yeah,
if we
right.
really needed to, because then we just need 3. So really, like, if me, Mark, Rebecca, or whatever, just 3 of us can, if we have the new board member, then we could just do something quickly. What's the notice requirement? Like for our, like how much far in advance?
72 hours.
72 hours. So
72
3
hours.
days. So as
Okay.
long as we know the agenda is by Friday, I can do it and post it. I won't be there, but
Or
there's actually
we-
something else we kind of would like to do at the beginning of July. So if we could do a July 1 quickly, that would be great. And then we can get all the stuff going for the new president. And then on the systems side, we can set everything up.
But we could also do it. We have 6 days left with the current board. Like that doesn't have to be done with the new board, right? So like we could also just have a quick Zoom this weekend.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. Katie, when do you think you need that second person in place by? Like when is that going to, like after how many days into July is that going to start to be a problem? Because Jeremy can still sign everything up and through June 30th.
Yeah.
And so it's really just the clock starts ticking on July 1st. Like how soon is that going to become a problem for you?
We want someone in place to pay bills like because the third and fourth aren't because 7th probably is the absolute like latest in July.
Drop dead date.
It seems like it would be a good idea for us to have, like, if we posted today for our 72 hours and then just in 3 days meet again, and then we can transition everything over, vote on the new president and get all of that in place.
Yeah, right. And we could do it on Monday, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
30th. The 30th is still, a legitimate day for all the rest of us
Yeah,
that are
it is.
going on. We could-
Gabe, do you have a Zoom account?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, I'll send you the template and you can do the agenda and put your Zoom on that one. I'll be out of the country on Monday. So,
Okay. Yep. I
Awesome.
can do that.
okay.
So I think at this point, I would entertain a motion to table the term limit removal for governing council members action item. And then we'll
Yeah.
so we'll table this for now. Let's vote in another member. Even if that doesn't go through, we could still do it on, we could do, gives us a little more time
Right.
to get somebody who's, if we don't.
Yep.
So, I anyway, yeah, I would entertain a motion to table this action item. Do I have that motion?
Question really fast. I'm wondering, do we want to discuss the new potential board member first so that we know whether this is somebody that we want to bring on before we table the other thing? Or do we feel good about just tabling and then we know for sure we're going to bring on this person? I don't know anything about this next person.
Yeah, we can table it and then pick it back up if we need to.
Okay, gotcha.
So let's table it for now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. I motion to table the term limit removal from GC members.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion to table.
Moved and
Terms.
seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. Bryn, how do you vote?
Hi.
Gabe,
I
Aaron?
Aye.
Okay, well, let's move to the next one. That's the drum roll, please. So Gabe, you had been working on this. Thanks for doing that, man. I've been so swamped, and that was a huge help. So, who have we got?
Julie, I think Julianne. If Julianne,
I'm here.
okay. So, are you able to speak on the new? Is the new board member the person we've been talking about?
Well, I assume so. We just had to have Dan put a generic line item here or for the agenda. But I'm not sure, Dan, what is the procedure? I don't know that you can vote on it if he hasn't presented his resume.
Dan says in the chat, just says that for the new member, like that the motion should be effective July 1st, so that
Yeah. So let me answer Julianne's question first. I think the agenda has notice to the public that you're voting on a new member. And so I don't think there's an issue with voting from an Open Meetings Act perspective with voting in a new member at this time. I think it's up to the board whether they feel like they have enough information to make the vote. But if they feel comfortable with the information presented, then they can go ahead and vote. And then my advice would be to make the motion effective July 1 so that the new member starts at the beginning of the fiscal
Yeah.
year so that they don't have to do their training
Right.
until next fiscal year.
Right.
So the individual who we were speaking of was Bill Lee. And I believe, I'm not sure if Jeremy, if you spoke to him or reached out to him, and then Gabe, I think, attempted to reach out to him.
Yeah, I've
And
tried.
I'm not sure what the result of that has been, or whether you've received a resume or any confirmation from him.
No, so yeah, then so we're kind of back to square one on this, just because I have not been able to get enough back from him. Like I don't know where it started from, but he's not been communicative on email. But then I heard he might have been leaving the chamber. So if we don't I feel like we need more from him to even vote on it right now. So that I think we probably just have to table this one too. Julianne, have you had any luck with trying him as well?
So I used a third party to reach him, and he has been speaking to Era Green and letting her know. He came to the school to have a conversation with me before school was out, and he said he was all on board with joining us. And I said, well, if he was wanting to, that he would need to contact Jeremy and start that process of submitting his resume to the board. But I don't know if Jeremy, you got a chance to reach out to him, or if you did.
Jeremy tried, and I don't think had I just can't get it. I can't get in touch with him.
Right.
I haven't had time to really work on Bill. I will have some time this week though. And so I can try to set up a meeting with him and see what his thoughts are. I think, I mean, for the record, I think he'd be a great addition. He actually is leaving the chamber. He's retiring. If he hasn't already, he is retiring from the chamber soon. But they're staying, I mean, they're not moving. He and Jenny are staying in town. His wife Jennifer works for, his wife Jennifer worked for the public school, for McKinley County Schools. Um, but but I do think his background and experience and his connections at the state and all that stuff could be really good help for the school. Um, so, but I think Gabe's right. I don't if we don't have his resume and stuff, and if we haven't really spoken with, no one has like spoken with him face to face about let's do this thing. We should work on that, and I think that's something that I could probably put together before Monday.
Okay. And I've tried, but I just like, he's probably just like, who is this weird? I got his number from Aaron's husband who knows him. And he's probably just like, who is this weirdo who keeps texting me from a 312 number or something, or call, he's not like, I get it. If it's just, you're not going to answer an unknown call, or, maybe my messages aren't even getting through. So, and I am happy to speak with him. I just like, I have emailed and called enough where I feel like, he
Yeah, no,
probably
that's fair.
thinks I'm spam anyways. So
Yeah, that's fair.
um okay. So yeah, so I guess we'll table this as well, or do we just, or do we vote? What's the way to
Yeah, we don't really have anything to vote on, so I would entertain a motion at this point just to table this as well. And then I think what we can do is we'll set up a meeting for Monday. Gabe, if you can help us out with that, that'd be awesome. And then
Yep.
we'll reapproach these things on Monday with a little bit more substance ready to go, at least with the
Yeah.
new member vote. Yeah.
And I would just say, like, to the kind of concept of adding new members in general, that like, this is kind of, contradictory given the time frame that we're currently in, but like, to the extent that we can not be rushed, because it really does, it's a small town. And I think, and I've talked a little bit with Julianne about this, like, we really, as we grow as a school, like, I really would love to have like some strategically placed people, or even some people with deep pockets, or stuff like that, to, who can be, really help us, as, I don't think we encounter any um problems that are abnormal for a school of our size, but it's just like, and then, it'd be great to grow the number up, but I don't think I think I want to, avoid growing the number up just for the sake of growing the number, but really be thinking about, and I think Bill, from that standpoint, from what I read about, past chamber president, he's perfect. Um, but we're just kind of, we're a little tight on time, but if we can get, him in, I think that'd be great. And then, I'm happy to take it forward. Like, it's funny, I really should have done, my board training a long time ago, but it's like, like, they keep harping on it. It's an ongoing process, and you got to be working on it all the time. And I get why they say that, because it really is hard. And if we're not always focused on like, how are we going to find these next people, like, it's easy to see how we can get stuck. So, um, all that just said, like, and I guess, Brenda, I think that's great that you've got somebody, if anybody else, you know, has somebody in mind. What I originally thought, but I think if we can just focus on, we have a decision to make by Monday, which is vote in Bill or somebody, similarly qualified, or go to option B, which is, the term limit extension for one or all. And then from that point forward, you know, to try and take a little bit, you know, I will be happy to do it, and I think anybody else can, but just to kind of keep trawling the waters and see, because we can go up to 9. Is that accurate?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would motion to table the new board member vote.
All right, is there a second to
I'll second that.
moved and seconded? Any further discussion?
I do. I'm curious. While we've been in our meeting, I've had a couple text messages back and forth with Jackie. Also feeling like, oh my gosh, I haven't done a resume in years. And I'm like, yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I am curious on these two potential board members that we're discussing tonight. Would we want to invite them to preview our meeting on Monday?
I think so. I think we have done that in the past, right? Did we do that with Terry and
Yeah,
Ben?
because when I came on board, we kind of came, introduced ourselves, but it was during the course of a regular board meeting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we could invite them for sure if especially if Jackie's interested. So that's if Bryn, if you have been in contact with Jackie and she's interested, have her, and her resume doesn't have to be fancy. It's just kind of just a CV or whatever. Just list what
Probably ask ChatGPT to work up a resume. Just give ChatGPT the bullets. No, tell ChatGPT no exaggeration, but
keep it on the real.
yeah.
So yeah, we could look at her resume as well.
Do you guys know what time we're thinking for that meeting? I'm going to be up in Montana, but I can pull away from our activities and be there. So just wondering, kind of, are we thinking same time, 5:15 Monday?
I think so. I think that would be good. Give us a little time on Monday. And give me a little more
Yeah,
time on Monday.
that works for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let her know, whoever's in contact with the other person, they could let them know. And
Yeah.
Jeremy, you're gonna try Bill to see if we can get.
Yeah, I'll get in touch with Bill here tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah, and if you get in touch and want to hand it off to me, I'm happy to pick it up. Whatever's easiest or whatever makes sense to you. I just think I need a lot of help with getting in the door. So
Yeah. Well, I'll probably take him to lunch and just kind of feel him out, see what he's thinking, and really give him the lay of the land so he knows what he's getting into.
okay.
Eyes wide open.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So I've moved and seconded. That was further
well,
discussion.
we need a second, I think.
Yeah, Bryn seconded. So you moved.
Okay.
Seconded,
Yeah.
but that was discussion. Any further discussion? All right, hearing no further discussion, let's vote to table the new board member vote. Gabe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bryn, how do you vote?
I
Aaron?
Aye.
Okay, well, that brings us to the next thing. Not quite done yet. Right, Katie? Let me go back to mine.
Yep, that's right. We have a few more items here.
All right.
Okay, so we need, the next thing is the Boardman property. Dan, do you want to talk a little bit about this? Stand on mute.
Anna, still.
Yeah, he's on.
Yeah.
There we go.
I don't know.
Well,
Dan, are
he's
you
on.
there to talk about the Boardman lease?
Essentially, we need the board. What do you
I'm
guys
here,
think?
sorry.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Can you refresh or say in probably better terms than I can around why we need this approved for the LPA?
Okay, if we wanted to use different. We don't need to like work.
So yeah, I mean, basically this is just a stopgap lease that will be in place while we're working on the lease purchase arrangement. I reviewed it. I didn't have any issues other than it seems like there's a typo with the date. And so I would recommend approval with the date corrected to 2025 versus 2023.
Right. And so we are, remind me, does the bond does not include the Boardman property, right? We're just going to continue to lease that because we need that space until construction is complete. Is that right, Julianne?
Yeah.
Yes,
correct.
that's right.
Okay,
But so right now we're leasing it, right? And so
Right.
what we're trying to do is enter into an LPA for the same amount we're leasing it. So the numbers don't change because while the bond is paying for the park property, we were always gonna pay an extra 20K-ish a month
Right.
for Boardman. But now we have an LPA. What we want to do, right, is have an LPA, and then we want to for Hozho to own it.
right, okay, so, right, so the bond, it's a side deal from the bond, but we're still doing an LPA with, so that LPA will be with Equitas, and the
Yes.
other LPA will be with the nonprofit set up to run the bond deal, right?
Yes, that is right.
Okay, I got you.
Correct.
Okay, and, all right, so I would entertain a motion then to approve the lease agreement for the Boardman property with the date change from 2023 to 2025. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve it, the lease agreement for the board, the property.
With the date change from 23 to 20.
With the date change from 2023 to 2025, yes.
That's the motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. Gabe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aaron, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bryn?
Aye.
All right, approved.
Great. Okay, so the next one I put there because there's been a lot of movement when it comes to the bond and other stuff from PED, and I wasn't quite sure what all we needed on this meeting. So that was there kind of in case there was any into your business, but to my knowledge, there isn't as of now. So I think we can
Move to the next. Nothing,
move to the
nothing
next.
there. There's nothing under that item. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, the next would be principal's report.
Yep.
Okay, hopefully I'm not on mute. All right.
You're
Um,
good? Good, Winker.
So we just completed year 7. Our current enrollment is 751 with 55.6% Native American, 76% minority. We had 252 on the wait list, and we've had some new interest. Right now, the number is showing 173, which would be 425 on the wait list. But I'm not certain if some of the families didn't re-enroll, even though that's not what that enrollment tab is for on the website. But sometimes people re-enroll. So it's right now, it's unclear how many additional. So it's the 252. If everybody on that wait list is a legitimate new student, would be 425 on the wait list.
Wow.
But until we go through it, I don't know for sure. So we start that process on July 1st of sorting through that. We have our kindergarten full for next year, plus at least one student on the wait list for that. Actually, probably 3 students on the wait list because we have a couple of students who are going to be retained into kindergarten. And then we have another pre-K that we've added. So that will bring us another 20 students once that pre-K is full. We've moved our 6th grade class because we've run out of room at the elementary. Our 6th graders are going to move to the Boardman site. So it'll be 6, 7, and 8 over at the Boardman campus. However, 6 is going to stay self-contained within 3 portables, and they will just go class to class as they have done at the elementary between those 3 portables and have their specials or extracurricular classes like art or whatever at the elementary school. And then we bus them over after that. We figured out their lunches and playground area, and it seems as though all of that sort of coming together. The portables have already been moved, so we're in good shape for that. Just completed the Hillsdale training. The elementary teachers are there now, probably just getting ready to leave today, tomorrow. So they administration and upper school and lower school have all gone through the Hillsdale training. We're waiting to hear on our state scores. Because we were told if we had our testing by a certain date, we would know by at least the beginning of June what the scores were, but we haven't heard anything yet, to my knowledge. Nothing's come to me anyway, unless it's gone to a district test coordinator, but she would have called me immediately if she had received it. So as of right now, I don't have any new data to share with the on end of year test scores. We're good for staffing, other than I have maybe one position that's open for first grade or somewhere in K3, because one of our staff teachers has moved to take a special education position. So so we're just advertising that. Joe Nez is going to be putting that on the website and seeing what kind of response we get. That's as far as I know. The only open position, other than if we have a music teacher at some point who's an official music teacher. Right now I have somebody holding a spot for that, but maybe we'll be able to switch that out. So but I think that's everything up to date.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Julianne.
Oh,
Okay. Katie, you're next.
All right, let's, there we go, okay. All right, I'll go to my report, because there are the bars, there's check register, bank recs, y'all have already looked at all this stuff. The lease we looked at. Okay, so, this forecast, a little bit different format than we're used to. We are, a little bit crunched for time these days on the finance accounting side, because the auditors have decided to start the audit as of June 1, as opposed to like mid-July. So Laura and folks on the accounting team have been working double time to try to get the auditors what they want. And so essentially we're going to be doing two mini audits. We're doing an audit from July through April, and then we're gonna do another one, I don't know, maybe in August or September of the last 2 months, and then financials be due in August. So that's kind of the state of the audit. And anyway, so we're doing our best to keep up with everything, especially with this the additional stuff from the auditors. And to that point, we won't do financials in July because we need to close the whole fiscal year, and I want to make sure that everything is perfect to the penny for everything. So whatever you approve for June, we'll do that in August, and then we'll approve June and July together in August. So that is where we are. Overall, there were some changes to the revenue and expenditures when we look at the previous forecast to the current forecast. The biggest one that we want to flag for folks, while most of your bars were increased bars, I have made adjustments to like USDA because those are kind of based on actuals, so we don't know what those are until we actually see the revenue hitting, or we see the reports that are submitted for the revenue. And so the thing that we're working on right now, which we are hopeful will go in our favor, is that PED is there's some questions around whether Hozho should receive a thing called the rural units on your SEG or your state funding. It's about it's actually closer to 416, but it's close to 408. And they gave us the units at the beginning of this fiscal year. They then said that they did that incorrectly, and they told us that in April. They let us know that we could apply for emergency funding to get that funding back, which we did. they then came back and let us know that they actually didn't think that we qualified for emergency funding or the units. So that's a problem, because it was, sorry, I didn't realize my video was on. It's a problem because, by April, we have already spent this money or encumbered it. And so, we are right now, and Dan is really helping us here, to work with the state to actually not only get this money back, saying that schools should have received rural units, but hopefully we will also start receiving that money going forward. So rural units are based on when the school was started. PED is arguing any school started after 2018, not eligible for them. But our argument is the school was actually authorized in 2017. So anyway, so Dan's working on that. We don't really have a lot to bring to the board right now, except that it does seem to be going well. And we did ask for an update by June 30th at the end of the fiscal year. So that's, of all the changes on here, I would say that is the most significant change on your forecast. Dan, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think, I mean, we're in a public meeting, so I won't get into any of the specifics about, what we're talking about with the state, but I think you've covered it all.
Okay, so anyway, you can see overall, so I did add the detail here, but I do think we're still aiming, we're going to end around 600,000. This is a little bit, but that is, I think, worst case scenario if we don't receive the funds. If we do receive the funds, we're going to be closer to $1 million, which would be awesome. So more to come on that. And I don't know, maybe even by Monday if Dan or I know more. I won't be at the meeting, but I can always shoot Gabe a text, or Dan can fill you guys in. So any questions on the financials or any of the variances or changes that have happened?
None for me. Looks great. Thank you.
Where, just I guess along the financial lines, but like, where are we at with the bond closing? Is that is it closed? Done?
Done.
Okay. It's
Done.
done.
Everything has been funded, so bond is done. And I did flag, because once we learned about potential reductions in revenue, I did flag that for the folks that helped us with the bond, and they said all that matters now is going forward and hitting and like audited financials. So as long as the audited financials are positive and clean, which they will be, they didn't see a problem with the change, because we didn't know about the change until after the bond went through. So we should be fine.
And our financial kind of obligations to them, that stuff doesn't kick in for a year, is it? Okay.
Yeah,
And then
so
the only like thing was like, we're plenty clear from the issue we ran into last year, which was we actually finished in the red. Our financial, that's kind of what led to the whole meeting and everything else. So we're hopefully, we're close to a good resolution with PED, but worst case scenario, we're not at risk of kind of having to go through that whole process again, based on that finding.
that is correct. Yes, I do not see a world where we end in the red. Maybe close, depending on if there's some like end of year expenditures that we just didn't anticipate. But because I mean, you guys do have a $16 million budget, and right now we're showing a net operating of $600,000. So it's not a ton of money, right? It's kind of a rounding error. But we try to be as precise, and I try to be as conservative as possible. So I am hoping that well, no, I am like pretty sure we're not gonna land in the red, so it should get rid of that finding. And that might be the only concern an auditor, or sorry, someone from the bond might have. But at the same time, none of the covenants for us kick in until June 30, 2026.
And is the change in the auditing schedule at the behest of due to the bond, or is this a state?
No. It's because CLA, the auditors, took on the APS schools. And so they now have 20, 30 more charter schools they have to do. And so they already had the state schools information in their system. So we are round one. And then they're going to come in and then they're going to do APS. And then they're going to come back to us.
Okay.
And so
But
what
this is maybe like a 1 year thing. This kind of
it all depends, I guess, on who, if we have to go with the state auditor next year, we get to pick our own. I don't know. I don't know what it'll look like going forward, but I would say that if all schools have to use CLA next year, it's going to be similar, or they're going to have to really increase their staff. They just from what we've heard from the audit staff, they don't have the capacity to do 100 schools.
yeah. Okay. And I just have one other question too, was the other issue that I can't remember the precise wording for it, but the issue with the reduction in funding due to this state changing the way they calculated units.
Clawback.
Yeah. Is there any update on that?
You mean the rural units?
Yeah,
No,
that's-
no, Jeremy. There was a second issue, so it's separate to the four. Like last month when we were looking at our financials, kind of I forgot. Like
we had miscalculated something and they gave us too much money. That was the rural units though, right?
No, but I thought there was a different thing with like our like that was affecting a bunch of other schools in terms of like never mind. I guess if that's not ringing a bell for you, that you had a bunch of like kind of our funding expectations were changed because of something that the state changed, and there was talk about the solution would have to come from kind of a legislative level or whatever. If that's not ringing
Oh, that might be for next year.
okay.
That might be the unit value, if that's what we're
That's
talking.
yeah.
Okay, because that was so last meeting we were talking about the budget, and so that's what I was saying, that they set the unit value kind of conservatively. It is impacting everyone. It's definitely not covering expenses. A lot of people are, oh, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about, this just dawned on me, the at-risk number, the at-risk.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah. So that would have to come, or safe harmless, because we were supposed to get safe harmless for a year and we didn't because of, again, the way they calculated it. So I know that there are like 10 schools coming together fighting on this issue, Hozho being one of them. I have not received an update from Todd, who's kind of.
Okay. But it's in action and we're kind of like,
We're
it's an
trapped.
issue that's affecting so many people that okay. Good. I was worried for a second that I like somehow just like completely made.
No, sorry. I am so immersed in FY25 right now. Like, so it's so weird, right? Like you live in your current fiscal year, and then you have to do a major shift to the next year, and you're just like immersed in FY26. And then at the end of the year, you got to switch back and remember everything from that fiscal year and the rules for that fiscal year, and then you got to go into audit. So
Yeah.
it's no, I now remember what you're talking about. Yeah. So, but that's
Okay.
next year. If we know anything, it would impact us starting in July.
Okay.
All right, great. Thanks, Katie. No comments from the public in the emails. So we can adjourn.
Sorry, I have a quick question. I'm curious if Ms. Silic knows, or maybe you, Jeremy, on what's going on over at the property and stuff, like an update on that. I don't know if we want to adjourn and then chat after or what.
So much dirt moving.
Yeah. Exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I think right now that's the plan, is just to get that dirt moved and then get the portables moved in first and foremost. But Julianne, have you talked with Matt on what the schedule looks like there?
I haven't spoken to him since the first week of June. From what I understand, the portables are in and placed over at the Boardman property, and they're expected to be hooked up and ready to go by the time school starts for sure. But that we're in very good shape as far as that goes. Typically, that's something that we're waiting till the last minute for, and it worries me because I never know we're going to be ready on time. So they did that first, and I think that's all a go. And then the next thing was to move all the dirt so that they could build the infrastructure and lay all the lines, and they didn't know what they were going to be facing once they started moving the dirt, whether there was going to be rock or something. I guess there was a couple of times they had to blast some stuff or dig it up. There was some big boulders and rocks and stuff, but I think it's going better than they anticipated because it's going pretty fast. And I
Yeah.
didn't expect them to be as far as they are at this point. So all that is very positive news. The first thing that's going to go up will be the dome once the road is done, and they can get ready for us to come in and have a path for pickup and drop off, and get everything safe for the start of school. And then they'll start with the dome and then move on to the cafeteria once that's done. But everything seems to be on track.
Exciting.
And is the dome going down in that position, or is the dome going up on top of the, like where the dirt track has been?
Where
For
the
the-
dirt track is, yeah.
Okay. And then what's that space down below?
Future
So
foot-
in between the school, the high school and the elementary, there'll be a cafeteria in there. And there was a small footprint for a high school building, which I think is not realistic at this point to think it'd have to be like 5 stories high to meet the needs. So we're looking for perhaps an alternate location for that, but there'll be portables put in over behind. So right now there'll be in that area an admin portable. That's the thought, that there'll be something there, and then we can fence off the school. And then people, when they come to the property, they just go straight to the admin building as opposed to trying to get into the building from multiple doors. So hopefully it'll be safer and there'll be more room. But that admin portable isn't necessarily the top order, because we just weren't sure what was going to be happening with the dirt removal, and so it wasn't something that was required for the start of school. So we already own the portable, we'd just be moving it, but to get electricity and potentially plumbing, I don't know. I'd have to check in with Matt because it wasn't on the docket at the time, but it may be now.
And
That's
then
So there-
my question,
Go ahead.
with the big, I haven't seen, I know we've had like several different editions of the overall plan of the school. I haven't seen the latest, but is all of that, like, is the cafeteria part of that? I'm just curious, like if, I feel like we've had to do things bit by bit by bit, but keeping in mind like what our big master plan is all of this fitting into what that big master plan is?
Yes, there is a big master plan. Let me see. What I'll do is I'll send it out to all of you on the board, the renderings that we have. Or I'll ask Kyle to do it because he has them stored.
Okay, that would be awesome.
So we'll just give you the most updated pictures.
Okay, thanks. That concludes my questions.
Thanks, Brad. All right, that concludes our meeting then. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you Monday.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.
And Gabe, all
See you
the-
Monday.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.